We start with the big story. Minneapolis City Council has voted to dismantle and defund the city's police department following the brutal killing of George Floyd. The council has also recommended that the city adopt a community policing model despite strong opposition from the mayor himself. Remember, this is the same city where an unarmed black man, George Floyd, was killed at the hands of a white police officer. 9 members of the Minneapolis City Council announced that they intend to end city's policing in its current form and rebuild a new model for public safety. With 9 votes, the council, which enjoys veto-proof supermajority, made its announcement as protests stretched into the 13th day across the United States of America.
We demandingly say
our commitment is to do what's necessary to keep every single member of our community safe and to tell the truth that the Minneapolis police are not doing that. Our commitment is to end our city's toxic relationship with the Minneapolis Police Department, to end policing as we know it, and to recreate systems of public safety that actually keep us safe.
Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, who stood in opposition to the idea of dismantling the police department, was heckled by a huge crowd of protesters. The protesters had marched to the mayor's residence, demanding the removal of funding for the Minneapolis Police Department.
If you're asking whether I'm willing to do everything I possibly can throughout the rest of my term to make sure that the police union, the police contract, the arbitration system, and some of these policies that have resulted in problems specifically for black and brown people, and murder, by the way, over a series of generations, I'm all for that. I'm not for abolishing the entire police department, and I'll be honest about that too.
After days of protests, President Trump has ordered the National Guard to start the process of withdrawing from Washington, D.C. Earlier, around 5,000 National Guard personnel were deployed across 11 states to ensure peace as protests over brutal killing of George Floyd took a violent turn. However, Trump's tweet did not specify whether all National Guard forces would be withdrawn or it would just be out-of-state troops that would be leaving. Meanwhile, in New York City, Mayor Bill de Blasio announced that the city would be lifting curfew spurred by violent protests against police brutality ahead of schedule. Just more than 2 hours after the curfew had passed, thousands of demonstrators continued to march in Manhattan and Brooklyn. It is day 13 of protests, and demonstrators continue to gather in large numbers demanding justice for George Floyd. Despite experts' concerns about coronavirus spread during these protests, the crowds were seen defying social distancing rules, decrying police brutality and white supremacist ideology.